in the never-ending battle of Kent versus things that you measure with, or more to the point, things that you mark things with. My fretboard for the rebuild has developed a problem, and I'm a little irritated because it's a really cool fretboard. Got this groovy cherry wedge that I inlaid more or less into the ebony, and I marked my center line all nice, and I marked my center line all nice, and I lined everything up, and I used my groovy little centering ruler, and I used my groovy marking knife to get super precise right on the what was supposed to be 71 and 5/32 off the center line, and I marked it, as I said, with something nice and precise. And I did it on the other side, and somehow something must have slid. I swear to God it didn't, but clearly it did, because I am no longer with enough fretboard from here to about here. The whole idea behind this fretboard is that it starts at the 0 fret and it ends at the 12th fret, which is one visual marker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a couple more wedges of cherry, and I'm going to start them at the 5th fret and make them wider to here. And then I'll resaw those frets with my handsaw. I'll be able to save it. It just, boy, this is obnoxious. And more proof that the measure twice, cut once does not apply to me. I can measure 1,000 times and still screw it up. All is not lost. I learned an interesting thing about the planer is that if it gets a little bit cold, the rollers, the rubber rollers inside that hold the work down, get kind of stiff, and they don't grip as well as they could. Boards will go through, and even though your cutting depth is the right amount, it's not too much, not too little or whatever, the board will hesitate and it'll kind of grind away at it. So you heat them up. So I'm gonna let the heat gun blow through here and warm up the rollers for a second before I start cutting. You probably don't want to get it too close to the plastic. think that'll do it. A little trimming room. We'll take it right up to the 3rd fret. Obviously not quite what I had in mind, but I think it'll work. I think it'll solve the problem. And I think I'll be able to finish the guitar without screaming and crying because I really like that. Time to glue it up. So the additional wood worked. It's right where it needs to be. And I originally was gonna just use a hand fret saw and redo all this stuff, but I started thinking I should be able to use my my table saw.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
The neck was no longer, or the fretboard was no longer square, so I couldn't just line it up along the edge. So what I did is, since 1st, 2nd frets are not obstructed by this new addition, I just raised up the saw blade. Where are you? There you are. So I raised up the saw blade, got it right where the pin was, and I laid down the fretboard first. So pretend the template, the cutting template isn't there. Laid it down over the blade and checked to make sure, oh, hello B. Made sure it couldn't rock this way because that made it square. So I just then left the fretboard there, put down my 2-sided tape, stuck this down on it, and then did the cuts. Back when I built the original guitar, I clearly didn't really know what I was doing with the truss rod. So we got a pair of carbon fiber rods, which I'm just doing on everything anymore, and then a dual action 4mm truss rod. And I think that at least will mean the neck on this one is better than the last one, even if I were to make it the same baseball bat profile, which I won't. So yeah, we'll get this thing glued up this afternoon and start carving. I want to put a black inlaid dot, preferably out of the ebony, on the 5th fret, and then a cherry one on the 17th. Hard to find dowel rods in that side, and even harder to find a plug cutter that's smaller than 1/4 of an inch, which is what I want. I want it smaller than 1/4 of an inch. So I took a piece of sawed off ebony. So I cut off a little blank, a little square blank. And I'm going to use the drill press and some sandpaper as a little mini lathe. So I'm gonna try to do something interesting with this this scrap from the top. Let's see if this works. I kind of have my doubts, but it could be cool. Kind of get the grain sweeping across it and a little dig in from the scrap or the inclusion area. It might be very, very cool, or it might suck.
Calamity! Catastrophe! Cataclysm!
This is the kind of build that challenges your thoughts that maybe you know what you're doing. And so I have my veneer for the headstock. Yeah, that's it, the headstock. But I had to thin out the headstock itself because the veneer was so thick. I didn't want to thin it down too much because I kind of liked the way it looked. And the headstock I cut sort of imagining a much thinner piece of veneer. So I needed to take down the top of the headstock. The veneer would be too tall and the string angle would be weird and it might come out of the nut and all that stuff. So I measured precisely and very, very gingerly took it over to the belt sander to thin it down. And in a half second of oops, I did that. So I keep telling myself I should take a crack at some inlay work. No time like the present. So I'm gonna take this little piece of ebony and cut a little trapezoidal triangular thingy and put it here. I think I've been successful in the repair on the belt sander mishap. The insert looks pretty good. There are a couple gaps that I think I can fill with sawdust and hopefully it'll look fine. I have to re-radius the rest of the neck, at least crank it down a little bit so everything's smooth and gets rid of some of the unintentional chisel marks I left in the process of cutting that wedge out. So here we go. So you know what? This is gonna work. I'm not, totally displeased. There's a little schmutzy stuff around the edges of the wedge, which just, not really sure how I could have avoided them. Cleaner cuts, maybe a little better glue up, maybe a little more finesse, talent, any of these things. But it's there, it works. The worst problem is solved. And I got my headstock veneer all ready to go with a nice big round access hole. I'm gonna try to do a magnetic cover thingy there. I'm not sure out of what, probably out of something, probably walnut, just because I have a lot of it. Ooh la la. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with all that. And we have results. What an experience. As the man says, no problems, only solutions, right? It's weird how much I kind of enjoy the fact that I made those god-awful, horrific mistakes, because trying to figure out how to fix them was fun. It's weird to say that, but it really was fun. It's like, okay, how am I going to solve something so bizarre? I never would have come up with this as part of the design, you know? So I have got a little bit of new design language for my instruments, and it's all based on me screwing up. I think there's a lesson to be learned there. Maybe not a great lesson, but a good one. So now it's on to gluing the neck on. It's on to getting the finish on the guitar. This thing's close now. This thing's really close. I'm quite happy with where I'm at. Thank God, because for half a second, I was not. So see you next time.